Hey, it's Paul Fleming again with Martech Mentor, where I save leaders like you hundreds of hours every year. I want to show you one today that's a great automation using AI, Make.com, and Airtable.com, as well as Brevo for email sending. Those four tools together are allowing me to basically create a business development manager on the fly. And so here's how it works. I have an e-commerce store where thousands of orders are placed every year. And what I wanted to do is use AI to kind of become my business development engineer or agent. And so I've set it up so that when a new order comes in, it automatically sends that information over to Airtable. Let me show you that, what Airtable looks like. If you're not familiar with these tools, by the way, don't worry, because in my group, I give you a list of all the tools that I use. There are literally hundreds of them. I show you how to use them, and to make it even easier, you don't have to recreate any of this because I'm going to give you the blueprints and the templates and the scenarios for all of these tools. So here's Airtable, and basically what I've done is set up an Airtable with things like the order amount that was ordered, the product that was ordered, the URL from that product, the customer's email address, of course it's just mine, and the customer's first name, the customer's URL of their company, and something called a webhook URL, which I'll explain in a minute. So that's what the very, very simple table looks like. It's like a spreadsheet. And then I'm using that over here in Make.com to automate some stuff with that data. And then when it all comes down to the end, I'm using a tool called Brevo, which you may be familiar with, which is similar to MailChimp or Constant Contact or some of these other things that I really like Brevo. And it sends the email on our behalf to our customers. It also is great because we can text our customer, which is kind of fun as an added bonus to this setup. So let's go back to the beginning. I'll show you how I set it up. And if you get stuck, don't worry, because I'm going to give you the downloadable files where you can just import into your own Airtable, your own Make.com, and set up your own Brevo account and go. All right, so let's kind of tear this apart a little bit, and I'll show you what we're working with. All right, so it starts with Airtable. So let me show you how I normally set things up. If you're not familiar with this, I'll give you a very quick rundown. Airtable is basically like Google Sheets on steroids. And people ask me sometimes, why would I use Airtable and not Google Sheets? And one of the reasons is because what I'm about to show you. I can set up automations within this, and I can set up different views in this, which are really cool. So let's start over here on the far left. I've got a table, and it's called New Orders. Very simple to set up. If you're new to Airtable, you literally would just hit this button and say start from scratch and call it whatever you want to call it. And you would start with a blank sheet of paper, more or less. And this is where you would kind of build things. So that's essentially what I've done. I don't need this, so I'm going to actually delete it. And so I've got the new order table. And what I've done is I've set up a record ID, which actually is just more for housekeeping. I don't really need that. So what I'm going to do is actually just kind of streamline this down so that it's kind of out of the way a little bit. And then I've got a column called check to send. Now I'm going to tell you why I have that in just a minute. But you can see there's a checkbox here, and when I check it, something is going to happen. All right, so it's not checked now, and I'll show you why. I've got the order amount. Now, all of this order data is coming from my e-commerce system, and I've told my e-commerce system to go ahead and send all this stuff automatically to Airtable, populate this field, and that's a whole nother automation that you don't need to know because you might have a different commerce system than I have, but very, very simple to get data into this. So we don't even have to manually input this data. This data is coming from my e-commerce system. And when someone places an order, it just automatically fills this data in Airtable. And so I've got the order amount that was ordered. I've got the products that were ordered. I've got the product URLs on our site that they were ordered. I've got the customer's email, their first name, and their URL to their website, which is really cool. And I'll tell you why in a minute. And then this other column called webhook URL. I'll tell you what that is in just a minute, but that's an important part of this process, all right? Now, over here on the left, you can see there are different views. The all view shows me all of the content and all the data that I have in this table. But I like to set things up so that right from the beginning with a couple of filters. And what that does is it allows me, if I'm moving data through a process, it allows me to see what's been processed and what has not been processed. So in this case, this is a good time for me to explain this checkbox. When I check this checkbox, it goes through an automation, and I want to be able to look in there and find out, well, which one of these rows have completed. And so you can see I've got one called not sent, which means that the checkboxes are not checked. And I've got another view called sent. Now there's none in here right now because none of them have been sent in this test. But if I had sent one, and so let me just show you, if I were to click one of these and send it, it's going to disappear from this view. And now it shows up over here in this view. So again, it's now in the sent because that's checked. And it's not in the not sent because it's checked and I've got a filter set up there. So I love this Airtable, and you can use this. Very, very simple to set up, by the way. You just go create a view. And in this case, I created a grid view and I called it not sent. And then you simply click this little button that says filter and you say, hey, only show things on this view where the checkbox is null or not set. And then of course on the sent one, I've got another filter that says only show the things here that where the checkbox is checked. And so you can kind of see the early structure of an Airtable and how easy it is and how useful it is to use. The other thing I love about this is I can hide fields. So in some of these, there are some fields that are just not that helpful. And so you can see over here in this blue box, I've got 3 hidden fields, and these I can toggle on or off. And so like right now, I don't need the email subject and the email body that I'll explain to you in a second. I don't need those in this view, so I just turned them off, okay? Now, as we're making our way through Airtable, this seems pretty simple and straightforward, right? It's basically a spreadsheet with some views. But let me show you the magic of Airtable and where it kind of stands apart, and that is this thing called automations. And so in automations, basically, it allows me to interact with other tools such as make.com. And so in this case, I've set up an automation called send to make webhook. That's what I called it. You can call it whatever you want to call it. And here's how it works. I've basically said there's a trigger. Now, what's the trigger? Well, let's look at what the trigger is. I've told the trigger to say, when a record matches these conditions, and the conditions are as follows. When the table is new order, which is the table that I'm working with, all right, and when the check to send is checked, all right, so when that happens, then you're going to do something, all right? So we haven't told it what to do yet, but we just set the condition. Really simple, and it's super easy. You don't have to know any coding. You can just kind of use your imagination on what you want to do. And then I've got this script here. Now, this is a little bit more complicated, but don't worry, because in my group, I've got this for you. You don't have to think this up. It's just a bunch of nerds like me that come up with stuff like this, but you can literally cut and paste, or even better yet, you can literally copy this entire Airtable and it's there for you, so you don't even have to do it. But I do want to kind of dissect what this is. So I'm basically saying when this condition is matched, then go ahead and run this script. Well, what's the script? Let's go ahead and edit code over here. And again, nerd stuff, you can fast forward if you don't care about this, but I just want to, in layman's terms, show you what's happening here. I'm basically saying, go ahead and get some data out of these fields in the table, and then send that to this webhook. And so I'll explain what a webhook is, but I'm basically saying, wait for this or send this data to this webhook with all of these data points. And now I'm going to be able to use that data over in Make. All right. Now, again, nerd stuff is done. Let's get past that. What I'm going to do though is hit finish editing. And you can add a lot of things here, but this is one of the values of Airtable, is that I've got a script that I can run. Now that's going to be very important, because what's going to happen is I've set a column over here called webhook URL. And so what I've told the automation to do is when the box is checked, when this checks, then here's what I want you to do. I want you to go get this URL for this webhook, and I want you to send all of this data that I've chosen, all of these variables, the first name, the record, and the products ordered. I want you to send all that over to this webhook. Now, don't let your eyes roll back yet, because I'm going to explain really quick what that means, and I'm going to try to put it in terms that are super simple. All right. It's like this. Think of a webhook as a wide receiver in football. All right. So the webhook is way down there in the field, and the coach has said, look, Zach, or whatever the guy's name is, I want you to go down, run down, and kind of hover around the 20 and wait for the ball. All right. Essentially, that's what a webhook is. We're basically telling the webhook, all right, we're setting you up. Now, just wait. Just wait. We're going to throw some data your way. And when you get that, They don't want you to run to the touchdown. All right. So that's kind of essentially what a webhook is. So how do we do all that? Well, over in this tool called make.com, I've basically established, and by the way, make.com is a fantastic tool that we use for a lot of the automations that you'll see in our group. And basically what I did is I created a new webhook. Now, creating things in Make is super simple. In fact, let me just back out and I'll just kind of show you what this would look like if I were starting with a blank scratch of paper. It's called a scenario. And the good thing about the Martech Mentor group is that I actually give you the blueprints to all these scenarios. And so instead of you having to start with a blank page like this, there's a little button down here that says import a blueprint, and you're going to import a little file that I give you, and done. It's all set up and ready to go. But let's say you didn't have that. You would kind of start right here. It's like a blank sheet of paper. And so I'm going to go over here and say, I want to create a new webhook. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to create a new webhook, and then I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to create a new webhook. So this webhook is just for this scenario. It's not for any other scenario. It's only for this one. And so I'm going to say, just for fun, I'm going to call it Get the Ball. That's the name. You can name it whatever you want to name it, but I'm going to call it Get the Ball. And I'm going to hit save. And now make.com has a webhook. And I'm going to copy that webhook by hitting this button right here, copy address to clipboard. All right. And so once I have a webhook, now it's set up, and now I can do other things with it. All right. Now, I just showed you that to kind of show you kind of the beginning stages of what we did here. I actually don't need that because I've already got one. I just wanted to show you what it looked like. But you can see a ton of my make.com blueprints here. And let's go back into the one that I was working on. All right. And so when I get into this blueprint, you can see that I've got this webhook that I already set up just like a minute ago. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this one, this particular one, to my clipboard. I'm going to go back over here to Airtable, and I basically, you can see, have just posted that URL right in here. All right, very simple. So again, I haven't done any coding yet. I've literally just copied and pasted. Now, once I have the webhook, now, like I told you, this is the wide receiver. He's just out here. He's going, hey, send me the ball, send me the ball, send me the ball, send me some information. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn this automation on. And when I turn it on, it's just going to be sitting there waiting. And so what I've told Airtable back over here is using this automation, I've said, hey, when you check this box, go ahead and send all of this data to that URL, to that webhook over in Make, because it's over there waiting for you. All right. And so do all that. And then once it's set to check, I want you to change the view and only show me the things that have not been checked. And if I want to see the ones that have already been completed, I can see those here in this different view, but you can see that's the whole process. All right. So data comes in, we take that data and we look at it manually to make sure it's what we want. And then when we're ready to make this automation fly, we just check that box, and that box will trigger this automation, and that automation will send data over to make.com where it is waiting for us. All right, now, so let's focus on make.com for just a second. What have we got over here? Well, we've got that webhook, and this is where it's just kind of hanging out, waiting for new content. And then what are we going to do? Well, then I've added another module. Again, you can right click and add a module at any point. And when you add a module, then you connect it to the other modules. And so I don't need this one. I'm just going to delete it. By the way, I have an entire training on make.com, and you can also go to the make.com Academy to learn all about make.com. Honestly, you can get certified in make.com if you really want to get into this, and it's not that hard. But you don't have to do that because I'm showing you how to do it, but I just want to kind of give you some context. All right, so we've got a webhook. It's hanging out there at the end of the field waiting on data. It got some data. And now what I want to do is add an Airtable module. Now you say, well, I thought Airtable was over here. It is, but the great thing about Make is that we can interact right here with Airtable. So we can actually go back and forth and send, like a ping pong ball, we can send data back and forth. So in this case, it's more like a rugby game than it is a football game. The wide receiver got some content, and he's gonna kind of send a lateral over to Airtable, and Airtable's now gonna kick it back somewhere else. And so if you're into sports, that kind of gives you a little bit of a visual of how this all works. All right. And so I basically have set up a module for Airtable, and I've said, this one's really simple. I've literally told it, all right, I want you to just go get all the information that came in over here on this webhook. All right, and I'll tell you why I'm going to do that in a minute, but I want you to get all that. And the reason I want to get all that is because I only said a little bit of information in this webhook. But Airtable has all of the other information. And so basically, in this Airtable, I just sent this record ID. I just sent that in a webhook over to Make. And so now I've got it sitting over here and it's just this data. But now I want to get all the other data out of Airtable. And so I told Airtable, hey, go grab that record from the webhook and go ahead and get all the other information out of this table. Now, one of the fun things about Make is that when you use variables like this, you see this red variable that says it says record ID. That's actually coming from this over here. And the reason I know that is because, one, I put it there, but two, if I didn't, when I hover over any variable, you can see that things start to bounce. And when it bounces, that means, hey, this little piece of information is coming from over here. All right. And so I basically told it, go get all the records, all the information from this record that just came in. All right. And that's all we're going to do. Then I set up another module, and this module is Perplexity. Now, the great thing about Make is that there are tons of AI tools here. So I could choose ChatGPT if I wanted, and I could use ChatGPT. In this case, I'm using Perplexity. Now, why would I use Perplexity instead of ChatGPT? Well, the reason is because at this time of this recording anyway, Perplexity can go out and get information from a URL right now. So if I had a brand new site that I created right now, I could tell Perplexity, hey, go to that URL and get all the data from it. At this time, I can't do that with ChatGPT because ChatGPT is kind of lagging behind. It has past data, but not today's data. Now that may change after this recording, but right now that's the way it's set up. And so I'm using Perplexity, and here's what I've done. I've basically told it, and I'm going to show you kind of how this works. I basically told Perplexity, go and get some information that you already have. All right. Now that sounds silly, but basically make.com has now all the information from this table, all this information that I showed you over here about this guy named Paul who ordered flag banners. We got all his information. And so it's sitting right here in Airtable. And so I'm telling ChatGPT, listen, we already know this information. So here's what I want you to do. And I'm giving it a 2-part prompt. Now, you may know from AI that when you prompt, some of the best prompts are actually staged prompts. You don't give it all at once. You give it a little bit, and then you give a little bit more, and so forth and so on. In this case, what I like to do is the first message I send to AI is kind of a context message. And so that's why, if you notice here, this is called a system message. And the one below it, item number 2, is actually called a user message. All right, so this one's system and this one's user. Those are 2 different types of ChatGPTs or Perplexity or chat prompts that you can use. So what does that mean? Well, it's really, really simple. Don't let yourself get bogged down by it. Let me just explain it to you and it'll all make sense. In a system prompt, I'm basically giving the system some context. And I'm basically saying, listen, I own a popular e-commerce website, and one of our customers just placed an order using the following details. And you are a business development professional. You will start by going out to the customer's website to understand more about the name of their organization, their mission, and what city they serve. Then I'm telling it more. You will write a personalized follow-up email thanking the customer for their order, offering personalized recommendations for some of the other products that we have on our site. All right, so the great thing about this make process is that I'm actually feeding ChatGPT some dynamic information. Now, everything you see in black text is what I wrote, but everything in blue text is coming from somewhere else. Now, as I explained a minute ago, anytime you hover over a variable in make, something will bounce. And this little blue ball over here is bouncing, saying, hey, all of this data that you see here is coming from Airtable. And so I've told it, hey, here are the details of the order. Here's the customer's first name, their URL, the product they order, the product URL to our product, and the order amount. All right, so that's the context. That, again, is what we call a system type of prompt. Now, I've given it a little bit of context, so let's break it down a little bit more. I've given them now a second prompt, and the second prompt is what, again, we call a user prompt. And that prompt is like this. Write a professional yet very personal email, a body only, not a subject line, to the customer using their first name, which is, and again, I give them this variable taken from Airtable. Just output the email copy without explaining what it is. Now, as you get better at ChatGPT prompting, you'll notice from trial and error that you learn a lot of things about what to tell ChatGPT. And in this case, I've learned from trial and error that if I don't give a line like this, just output the email copy without explaining what it is, here's what I'm going to get back. Here's the email that you can send to your customer, and then it'll give me the email. I don't want that. I just want the email. And so I have to explicitly tell ChatGPT that. I want you to thank them for their order of, list the products, and in one sentence, again, very clear, in one sentence, mention how you visited their website, you enjoyed seeing the impact they're making in their community, suggest up to 3 other products from my store that they might find valuable. Do not mention the same product that they just ordered. And when offering a suggested product, you will also be getting the URL of that product from our website and including it in the message. In other words, we're going to give them a link to the product that we're recommending. And then I want you to focus on recommendations of our various types of signage, blah, blah, blah. Keep the email as short as possible. And here's some additional notes that I like to include to ChatGPT or to Perplexity in this case. In this step, do not create a subject line. Do not use any emojis. Do mention the customer's first name in the salutation. Do casually mention the name of the customer's organization. To help the email be about the customer and not us, do not say things like, thank you for your support. We don't like that. That's terrible marketing. We want this to be about them, not us. And so forth and so on. Now, if you don't know how to write a prompt like that, don't worry. I will literally give you this prompt so you can copy and paste, or better yet, just copy this whole system and you don't even have to copy and paste each of these prompts. And so basically I've told ChatGPT, go do this with the information that you got handed off from Airtable. Once it does that, then I kick it back to Airtable. Again, it's kind of like that rugby game. We got the ball, now we're throwing it to someone else, and now we're throwing it to someone else, and now we're throwing it to someone else. And so over here, I've said now that Perplexity, did all the stuff it's supposed to do. Now I want you to go get the information that it came up with, and I want you to send it back into Airtable. And here's what I'm sending it. I'm saying, I want you to give a subject line of personal recommendation for, and I've included the customer's name. And then whatever email you wrote from the prompt I gave you, I want you to kick that back into Airtable. Now, in real time, here's what that looks like. If I go back over here to this sent group, you can see I did an example here. Here's the subject line that came in. It's a personal recommendation for Marcy. This should say Paul. That was from a test. And so again, it says, hey, Marcy, because this is from a test and I changed the name, but it says, hey, Marcy, and it kind of gives this whole email that AI wrote. So I didn't write this. AI wrote this whole email with links from my website and scouring their website for some information. Now, again, there were a couple of problems on that one because this is from an earlier test before I started this demo. So what I'm going to do is run it again to show you in real time what this actually looked like. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete that out of there. So let's pretend that this has not been sent. So I'm going to uncheck it. And you know from what I told you before, that's going to change the view. It's going to go back into the no sent group. And so I've got one right here. It's not been sent. And I don't have the email written or the subject line written. All I have is just the basic data. All right. So what's going to happen is when I click that button, it's going to come over here to make. It's going to toss the ball to make. And the webhook's going to pick it up. It's going to toss it back and forth between these tools, and then it's going to do something else with it. So let's go ahead and run this and just see what happens. I'm going to run this once, which means that I'm waiting for new data. So now you see it spinning. And what that means is this is the wide receiver. He's out in the field going, hey guys, I'm open. And so I'm going to go back over here to Airtable. And I'm going to click the button that causes us to trigger and release or throw the ball down the field. All right, so let's see what happens, and then I'll show you the results. So I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, let's go ahead and click to send. Now you notice it disappears. Why? Because I've told this view to only show me things not sent, but I just sent it. So now it's going to show up in this other view checked. Now, here's the fun thing. You saw a minute ago, I deleted this, but it's already gone through the whole process I showed you, and it's giving you new information, all right? And so I'm going to go over here and I'm going to look at what happened. Well, I can click on the magnifying glass and see what came in. And you can see that the customer name came in. You can see that it grabbed all of this information from Airtable. And you can see from the results here, if I go to not the input, but the output here, you can see the entire prompt message that Perplexity got for me. Now, I don't know why it says Albert, so I'm going to check that and cross-check it in a minute. But thank you for your recent order of flag banners. I enjoyed visiting your website, martechmentor.com, seeing the impact you're making in the community. Here are 3 products, and it's doing exactly what I told it to do, given the URLs and everything else. All right, so that's looking pretty strong. And again, I need to edit just a little tweak on that ChatGPT, which I'll include in the group, that will make sure it grabs the proper name. All right, now, once I've done that, I've kicked that back into Airtable, which is why you were able to see this update over here in Airtable. Now, there's one other thing I need to do, of course, at this point, and that is I need to actually send this email. So I'm using a tool called Brevo, and if you're not familiar with Brevo, it's like, Constant Contact or MailChimp or whatever. And if you don't have any of these tools, by the way, don't worry. In the Martech Mentor group, I have an entire database of all the tools categorized by what they do, and you can go click on those and set up these accounts, and you'll be off to the races. But I like Brevo because not only does it allow us to email, but we can also text the customer. And so what I'm doing is basically, I set up a new module, and when I clicked on the plus button, I found the module Brevo, and I don't need that, so I'm going to delete it, but it's here. And basically what I'm telling it is, let's go ahead and send it to, and I'll do this in real time. So who am I going to send it to? Well, I want to send it to the person that was the customer. So I'm going to put their first name, and I'm going to send it to their email. So I'm going to go ahead and grab their email out of the database. All right, and what am I going to send them? Well, I'm going to give them the subject line, which is from the database that AI created. And I'm going to put the body, which is the AI email that AI created. I'm going to put that in both the body and the text. And that way, if they don't receive HTML, they'll at least get the text. And I'm going to say it's from Shannon at my company. And I'm going to blind carbon copy myself so that I can get a copy of it. And by the way, that is an important process when you're early on doing this. Copy yourself and, check the first 20 or 50 that happen. And that way you can kind of continually change your prompt and make it better and better and better. I'm not going to do that right now, but I just want to show you the process. All right. So essentially all of that happened. And so now that I've done that, I can go in here and hit save, which is a very important process. And there's a little button down here, auto align, that aligns my make.com structure. So it looks nice and clean and pretty. And so I've got that all set up. Now this is ready to roll. Now, what should have happened now that I've completed this entire process is if I were to run this again. So let's run it now and wait for new data. Here it is, the wide receiver down the field. And now I'm going to go back over here. And in this case, I've got the first name is Paul and the email subject is, and I'm going to delete these here, just give it some fresh content. I'm going to uncheck that. So again, this is not sent yet. And I'm going to go back in over here and actually, I'm going to stop this for just a second because while I'm here, maybe it's a good time to kind of troubleshoot why it said name. And I can see why. It's pretty obvious right here. So instead of, for whatever reason, I don't know why, I probably wasn't paying attention when I did this, but you can see this is light blue, not dark blue. That means that it's broken. And so I'm going to just delete that variable. And I'm going to go grab it again. And so what happened here, I don't know. I probably, when I was explaining this a minute ago, hit a button and it disappeared. So what I'm going to do is actually grab that first name again. And since it didn't have the first name, it just put Albert, some random name. And so we want to make sure we don't have that. All right. So that's the value of testing. Now I'm going to go here and I'm going to save that. So now I should not have Albert. I should have the correct information. I'm going to save that again, which is one of the most important steps. And I'm going to hit run and wait for new data. So now it's sitting there again, waiting on new data. Now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go ahead and click this little automation button. And when I hit that, remember, it's going to kick the whole thing off. And so there it goes. It's gone. It's now in the sent folder. And I come over here and you can see it working. Okay, it grabbed it, it did that, it did that, and now it just sent the email. So everything in this process should be done. AI did the whole thing. It took a little time to set up, but now every time an order comes through, I'm automatically sending a customer an email. Now, if I wanted to, I could get fancy and I could go over here and I could add another module here, which would allow a delay to set up. And it's very simple. I could say, wait 3 days or wait 3 hours or 3 minutes or whatever. And that way they don't get the order confirmation from our system and then immediately get this email. I want it to kind of wait. And so you can kind of play around with what works for your system, but that's the overall look. Now let's go over here and check our work. Let's go to the sent. And let's go down to this one. And you can see I've got new content coming up here. And let's go look at the subject line. The subject line is a personal recommendation for Paul. And on the email body, I've got the body. Let's read it. Okay, and this time it got it right with the right name because I had that was a broken step. I wanted to personally thank you for your recent order of seatback stickers. It was great to visit your website, martechmentor.com, and see the impact you're making in the community as you continue to grow your organization. I thought you might find our event tent link useful for hosting events and creating a memorable experience for your audience. This is great. I mean, I didn't write this. This is all AI. Additionally, our indoor signage link can help you effectively communicate your message and brand identity. Fantastic. Our outdoor signage link can also help you reach a wider audience. Hey, that's all great stuff. Now, if you have any other ideas or need help brainstorming, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're always here to help. Best regards, Church Inc. Idea Team. This is fantastic. I mean, so all of that happened automatically. And if you want something like this to run for yourself, in the group, just make sure you look at the automation tutorials and go over there and grab these blueprints, these templates, and just plug and play. And if you need help, I'm here to help you. But I really like this whole process. And if you want to get even more fancy, you could actually text this to your customer using Brevo, and that would be even more fun. Let's go over here and make sure that that email actually sent. And so I'm going to go here and check my inbox and just see if I got a notification. And it looks like I did. So here's the email that I got, Dear Paul, and there it is. So the last thing I might want to do, and I'm not going to do this now, is go and kind of clean up the formatting a little bit. This needs a little bit of some line breaks and that sort of thing. Those are simple things to do. But overall, this is the entire system. And this is how I solve problems using automation. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the Martech Mentor channel. And if you haven't joined the group yet, go ahead and get yourself in there and save yourself a ton of time by getting all of these kind of tools available to you with the click of a button and so much more. I'll see you on the inside.